Hello everyone, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad to be back to all of you. I'm Ekaterina from Future London Academy, and I am super excited today to welcome our guest, Max, from the founder of Ragged Edge, an incredible agency that does lots of branding projects you've probably seen featured on our website and on our Instagram. So I'm excited to talk to Max about all things branding and also how to run a creative agency, because that is a hard job. Hi, Max.
Hi, how you
How are you
doing?
doing?
I'm
I'm
good.
great. I'm enjoying that. It was a kind of a glimpse of spring today. There was definitely a bit of sun and blue sky, and I feel hopeful. How
We
about
had a
you?
yeah, we had a sniff of it, didn't we? Felt good.
I am excited to ask all the questions about how to survive 13 years of running a business and how to create great projects. But before we start with deep questions, I have rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready?
I think so.
Amazing. Well, let's try. Designer or artist you admire the most?
I think design. We all look up to Collins, don't we? Brian Collins, in our industry. So setting the benchmark still.
That's a good choice. And we had Brian on this Instagram live as well. So
Oh, did
I
we? I
hope,
need to listen to
yeah,
that one.
you're in a good company. Tea or coffee?
Ah, coffee every time. Can't drink tea.
Oh, and you
Can't do
live in
it.
London and you don't drink tea.
I
This
know I'm a
is
terrible Englishman.
terrible, terrible. Working from home or office fun?
Ooh, definitely the studio.
Did you? Amazing.
Yeah,
Um, Describe yourself in 3 words.
three words. Driven. Am I allowed hyphens? Self-critical, maybe. Tall.
that's that's a really good combination. I'll actually I will align with at least 2 of those. So I'm also very tall, by the way. For those of you who can't see us in full height, we are both very tall people. Um, what is one thing that annoys you the most?
What annoys me the most? I get, like most people, I get wound up on social media quite a bit. Seeing, for me, it's like humble brags annoy me.
Humble brags.
Yeah,
Yeah, they can be very, very annoying. The book we should all read right now.
but we should all read. I really loved. I'm trying to think of the name of it now. The latest Netflix book. No, I think it's No Rules Rules.
I've heard
Um,
of it. Actually, I haven't read it. It's
it's
about
really,
culture, isn't it?
yeah. It's about building a building the Netflix culture, which is sort of kind of controversial, but has some really interesting stuff in there about like freedom and responsibility, giving people freedom but also responsibility, which I'm trying to learn from a little bit.
That's a hard balance. It is a hard balance. What's your guilty pleasure?
I like pizza, but also a very specific pizza from a pizzeria called Zia Lucia, which is just around down the road from me.
Oh, I haven't tried that pizza.
It's
Something to
very
look
good.
forward
It's
to.
worth making a trek for.
Are they doing takeaway now?
Yes, and Deliveroo even better.
That's definitely on my list now. Professional achievement you are the most proud of.
I guess Ragged Edge, getting to where we are now, and like building the team that we have now, and building that team is amazing. Being surrounded by so many talented people.
Great. And the last question, what's the best part about working in branding?
I think it's for me, it's about the opportunity to really get to the heart of a business and define the direction and help businesses find a real way to move forward and really have a meaningful impact on those businesses beyond just what they look like and what they sound like.
Great. Amazing. Well, we are done with rapid fire questions, so we can now relax, sit back, and spend another.
Pressure's off.
Yeah, pressure is definitely off, and we can just talk about all things that we're curious about. So let me start with the question of how it all started. I suppose even going further back, could you tell us a bit of your personal story? Where did you grow up? What was it like growing up where you were? And I suppose, have you ever thought back then that you will have a company and that you will have a creative agency?
The answer to that last question is I definitely thought I would have a company. So my dad used to run a pastry business. So very different, but I always liked the life that he had, and that he was in control of his own destiny. So I kind of rather naively thought that there would be some genetic reason why I should also have my own company too. I think I probably thought it would be doing something like designing Lego. Maybe I was quite into that as a kid. But I grew up in the Cotswolds in a tiny little village in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, very different to where I am now.
And was it a creative place? Was it entrepreneurial place? Where did you get, apart from following your dad's steps, where did you get an idea to do something creative?
It was, I don't think it's a particularly creative place, specifically. There wasn't a lot going on, not a huge amount of exposure to culture, and obviously back then we didn't really have the internet either. So yeah, I wouldn't say that that was what introduced me to the world of branding, but I did always, my thing was art at school, so that was the thing that I was good at, basic drawing. So I kind of always felt like maybe that could be in my future, but I didn't really know how I would turn that into something that I could make money from, for sure.
And I suppose, how did it all brew to the point where you actually decided, okay, now is the time to start the company? You grew up, you studied design, you were interested in design, and how did that interest and curiosity lead you to, like, you know what, today is the day I am starting Ragged Edge?
I'd love to say it was a nice, linear, smooth progression. It wasn't anything like that, really. So I didn't study design. I studied philosophy at Nottingham Uni, and left there with no idea what I was going to do with that. I don't know what you are supposed to do with philosophy, but I never figured that out. And I ended up somehow managing to get a internship, or like a work experience, basically, a big advertising agency called, it's part of the Omnicom group, called TBWA, GGT Direct, catchy name. And it was a bit of a disappointment, if I'm honest, because I thought this was pre-Mad Men, but I kind of thought like I was going to be walking into this Mad Men style environment, where everyone was super creative and like incredibly cool and sophisticated. And no offense to anyone who was there at the time, but it kind of wasn't like that. And it was just like super bureaucratic and like just loads and loads of process. The creatives literally sat on a different, I was a client service person, and the creatives literally sat on a different floor, and we weren't allowed to talk to them. So it was pretty weird. At least not for me. It was I found it quite frustrating, and it kind of taught me a lot, but it also taught me a lot of what I didn't want to do. And so I ended up leaving there pretty sharpish. I wasn't the world's most talented account manager either, and thought that I better try and have a go at the creative side of things. So I'm self-taught, and I taught myself all the programs and things like that, and the discipline, whilst doing a variety of other strange jobs, and somehow managed to get some work freelancing. Mainly, to start with, honestly, mainly for my friends, and a couple of them were either brave enough or took pity on me to give me a try. And that kind of turned into a sort of fairly steady stream of work. And at that point, I was getting work through these things like a networking breakfast. I turned up to this thing and met the founder of a luxury travel company called Black Tomato. They were looking for somebody to help. They were looking for an agency to help design and build a website for them. So they were like a really cool, like very cutting edge, high end travel company, and they needed a website and kind of a brand to match, really. I didn't have an agency, but I kind of intimated that I might have, and that this might be something that we could do. And luckily, what I did have is a friend called Matt, who was a web developer at the time. So we kind of figured out that we could sell in this process and help design and build their website. And again, they took a risk on us to do it, but Matt was working another job at the time, so we're doing all the dev in the evenings, finishing his one job and then moving seamlessly onto coding this massive website, and we pulled it off and got away with it.
Oh, wow.
And it launched. And the great thing was those guys were like incredible at PR. And what they managed to do was that this website, the Black Tomato website that we created, won the Guardian Best Travel Website of the Year, I think.
Wow. For a first
Which was
job,
pretty
that's not
cool. Yeah.
bad.
And like, I'm not sure if that was the quality of the website or the quality of their sort of ability to PR it, but let's say the former. For now. And yeah, that kind of gave us the launch pad really, and the confidence to maybe start something a bit more formal. And Matt left his job and Ragged Edge was born.
That's amazing. What I love about this story is actually a couple of things. So first, it seemed like you had this kind of business brain from the beginning, going to this networking breakfast. Not every designer would think of something like that. It's actually, I think I've been to one of those. It's actually horrifying to go to
It was
those.
horrifying. So that was the first and only one I've ever been to.
I also actually attended only one. It is quite a lot of pressure, but you got business out of it. And I think second is this, I suppose, confidence to take on a job and knowing that you will pull it off. And I suppose there was some pitching skills involved that made the other side get convinced that you can do it, and yeah, that they believed in you. So I think that that's already a good start. But as we all know, it doesn't guarantee any sort of later success.
No.
So what was it like during the first year of Ragged Edge? So you got this first website. You both now kind of full time doing this. What did you do? How did you make money? Did you make money?
We did actually. So we had a couple of really big breaks. That first one was the Black Tomato thing, which was amazing. And we worked with them, not just on the website, but we managed to keep that relationship. And we worked with them maybe for a couple of years or something. But we also met someone who's now a really good friend, a lady called Natasha, who hired us to do some invitation design for Grey Goose vodka. And at the time, like, I'd never heard of Grey Goose vodka. It wasn't a thing in the UK. It sort of just launched. And so we didn't really know what we were letting ourselves in for. We had no right to win the work. But Natasha took a risk on us. Yeah, we just did one small piece of work for them, and that kind of ballooned into a whole load of stuff that ended up in I guess now 14-year relationship with that client.
Wow,
It's
that's
crazy. Yeah.
mad.
And again, it was genuinely was being in the right place at the right time. But also I think my training at the advertising agency that I've just callously rubbished was actually really valuable, because it enabled me to talk the talk, and even if I couldn't quite walk the walk.
That's actually a good point, and I feel like I always advise anyone who wants to run a company to work for a company because you learn so much while working with big clients, and you have I suppose it's a safer space to practice your skills, but you have other professionals around you, so if you mess something up, it's not the end of the world. Someone will pick it up, and also you can practice it on a much larger scale. So straight away, I suppose at your first job, you were working with kind of very important people and clients.
Yeah.
While if you start as a freelancer, you mainly work with your family and friends first. So when you get this first client meeting, you might like freeze, but you had this practice at the beginning, so it actually helped. Do you know what actually, have you asked these first clients what made them believe in you? Because again, there are many freelancers, there are many people who are ambitious, but did they say what in your pitch resonated with them?
Certainly. I'm really good friends with Natasha now. And so I think what she saw was like a level of integrity. My sort of sales technique, if you like, has never been about bullshit, or overselling or overclaiming. That's just not who I am. I'm not very good at it. So that I think she really responded to the kind of honesty, but also knew that we would work our socks off and really like just push until it was perfect. Which obviously she was actually quite new into the role, and she just needed to know that someone else was going to be there to be working as hard as she would, and would be invested enough, or as invested as she was in the end result.
I suppose 50% luck, 50% hard work, but definitely good results. So from that kind of first year, and I suppose you started getting more projects, at what point you started hiring people and growing it beyond just two of you?
So we hired, I think, it's a good question. I think we hired our first team member, who was another developer, actually, a chap called Ian, I think in the second year. So we've always been, I suppose it's worth giving some context. We've always been, you asked about like when did we make money? As a business, we've always been quite, like, our understanding of financing for businesses was as simple as like, if you make money, then you will have enough money to pay bills and salaries and things. So literally on the first day of Ragged Edge, we made money because we built, for that day. So we were quite cautious, and particularly to begin with, to make sure we would have enough money to, in case something went wrong, and we didn't have to, like, that we could afford to keep this person when we did bring them on. So it took us a little while to build the confidence to do that. Ian came in and was amazing, and then our, I guess, second employee, it was a chap called Luke Woodhouse, who is now one of our creative directors 14 years later.
Wow.
Which is pretty amazing.
Wow, that's I mean, that again speaks to a special culture that you building, and we'll talk about culture later in this conversation because I feel like it's such an important topic and definitely something that makes your agency different from any other place. So, okay, you've started hiring people, I suppose you started growing. But I think what's interesting about your story in particular, because you've been going on for 14 years, but you kind of started getting very popular in recent few years, which is very interesting considering how long have you been going. And again,
Yeah.
it seems like you've been doing amazing work. So what happened and how come it's only the last few years that brought you the popularity of the industry, I suppose?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So there are lots of, I see now like these agencies just popping out of nowhere who are just emerge fully formed and apparently perfect and doing sort of like smashing out amazing work for amazing clients like from day one. Raiders definitely wasn't that. The whole, I guess, ethos behind what we were doing, and certainly the reason for our success, was that we were learning on the go. And so we built up very gradually and got better with every project. To begin with, so for the first, I suppose, 5 or 6 years, we were just taking any work that we possibly could, just embracing it, like just excited that we had a business and that we were able to bill and we were able to work in this incredible industry. We got to the stage where we weren't really sure what type of agency we were. So we were doing all sorts of things, like we were doing a bit of design, a number of like little restaurant identities and things like that. We were doing some digital work, so website design, dev, that kind of thing. We were doing some experiential. We once put on a nightclub in Elton John's garden, which was pretty cool.
Wow.
But yeah, it was great. I mean, it was an amazing experience. But it was also a problem because we just didn't really have a sense of who we were, and the work was a bit messy and a bit all over the place. We were definitely a jack of all trades, master of none. One of the real turning points, I was sort of thinking about this morning, was Luke, who I mentioned already. He'd been with us, like incredibly like talented, loyal guy, and like the beating heart of this agency. And he'd got frustrated, and he'd gone and he got offered a role at a different agency, a bigger agency than us, where he was going to have responsibility for some sort of big grown-up accounts, but very specializing in branding. And that's what he wanted to do, and that's where his heart lay. And he'd got frustrated at Ragged Edge because we were just doing all sorts of everything, and it was all just a bit messy and a bit unfocused. And we had this quite, Matt, Luke, and I had this quite emotional conversation. Obviously, we desperately didn't want him to leave, and I think we recognised what he was saying, and we decided together that actually, let's go and build the agency that Luke wanted to work at. And so we decided there and then, like, we're just going to like have a relentless focus on the branding, build a branding business from within this sort of amorphous, nebulous agency that we'd created, and really focus on building that. And so what we did is we were lucky because we had this income from these other, like, decent clients who were reliable and giving us great work. And that enabled us to really build a branding business from the inside and take on some jobs that we perhaps wouldn't normally have been able to afford to take on because the budgets weren't quite right. One of which was the business that went on to become Bulb, the energy company. And the other one was Mindful Chef. So we met these like two sets of like incredible founders building these incredible businesses and got to work on those and really, really throw everything at it. And we were able to do that because we had the income coming in from some of the more established clients to create these brands and identities that would then go on to become these like huge businesses, incredibly successful. And having those as case studies just enabled us to take the next step and become a real branding agency or a real specialist focused branding agency with a serious reputation.
Brilliant. I want to actually go back to a few points that you mentioned because I feel like there is so much to unpack in this story. One interesting moment, obviously, they mentioned that was crucial, that kind of the feeling that it's the wrong company, and your creative director, Luke, realized that it wasn't the right place. And we actually had similar story from JKR when talked about how, Sean talked about how they realized they were in the wrong place. And that was actually a turning point for a company that they decided to stay in. They did turn around the whole kind of type of work and the processes that were in the company. So kind of, it's good to now reflect on all these stories and say, you know what, when people are leaving your company, it might be a great opportunity for you to stop and pause and think about what you're doing and actually turn it around to become the best you could ever be and do the greatest work you could ever do. So I think that's kind of an interesting, I suppose, angle to look at something that in the moment might not feel as great.
Yeah. It definitely, it was tough to hear at the time, but Luke was absolutely right. And that decision really defined, the next 7 years.
Amazing. And I suppose the second part that I wanted to ask you more about is, obviously you decided to go for this kind of branding as your main thing. And knowing that, first of all, your first hire was a developer and kind of two of you were on a kind of design advertising side versus, again, coding and development. I wouldn't say from those ingredients, I would say go for branding. So how did you decide that you should actually become a branding agency rather than a digital agency? We spoke to Sinks, the founder of Us Too, and he obviously was fully digital and kind of loved this wave of mobile that helped them grow the company. They kind of realized the opportunity there. So why did you decide to actually go against the technological route and go for branding?
For us, and I suppose this is personal taste, but for us, like, branding was where the action is, because it's where you get to set the vision and define how the company shows up across every single touch point internally and then externally as well. So it's always felt like branding to me has always felt like, number one, the biggest like strategic opportunity, the biggest creative opportunity, because you're creating something from nothing, but also the hardest thing to do because you're creating something from nothing. And so it felt creatively the direction that we've always, rightly or wrongly, perhaps wrongly, we've always very much made decisions based on that and the emotional factors and what are actually we and the team are going to get the most out of, how are we going to grow, how are we going to learn the most, and what's going to emotionally drive us, rather than thinking like a proper entrepreneur would think about what's the best commercial opportunity.
Makes sense. And I mean, I'm obviously biased and I love branding and that's the industry that I feel the most passionate about. But it's quite interesting kind of how you pivoted. Could you actually pause and talk more about the Elton John garden club? Because I can't get away.
It's nuts, isn't it? Yeah. So it was a partnership with Greg used to sponsor the Elton John AIDS Foundation. And every year, the Elton John AIDS Foundation would host a ball called the White Tie and Tiara Summer Ball, which is a big celebrity thing to raise money to benefit the foundation. The idea this time was that Grey Goose was going to literally, after the dinner party, all the guests would walk across the lawn and go to this like purpose-built nightclub. And so our job was to conceive like the guest experience, and then come up with a concept and an idea. And we worked with this agency called MP & Co, who then brought it to life. So it was surreal. And I remember at some point, like being on the dance floor with Fatboy Slim DJing and like Gandalf dancing around next to me, definitely putting me to shame, and thinking, how have I ended up here? What on earth is going on?
Wow.
It was pretty weird.
Yeah, I love these stories. They're definitely something to remember. And again, they happen out of nowhere and from quite random place. And I suppose that they stay in our memories for a long time. That's amazing. And so, okay, going back to now that you got these amazing clients like Mindful Chef and Bulb, and again, at that point, they were small and you decided to throw all your efforts and energy to build the best brands for them. Where, I suppose, first of all, how did they come to you? And like, is it again hanging out with friends? And I can see the thread of good networking skills happening here. Or did they see something in you at that point that attracted them?
So Bulb found us through the network, but actually one of our team at the time, a chap called Jason Bailey, who's now a very talented photographer. He was on our client service team, and he knew the membership manager at Second Home, which is a I guess a co-working space, and that was where Bulb were based. So we got an intro through that, which was again very fortuitous. But great. And then Mindful Chef. Do you know what? I don't know. I can't remember. I think maybe. I honestly don't know. Sorry.
No, I think but I feel like it's still quite interesting how it seems like you had great partnership first, clients second. So
Definitely.
All the people who came to you, they already kind of connected with you on a human side first before getting into the business, which not always happens. And I feel like that's definitely something that I suppose helped in those relationship building, those trends, especially when you're building something new, you need a lot of trust between both parties. So it seems like that trust was there, at least to some extent from the beginning.
Yes. I think that's a really astute point. And it's always been, certainly in the early days, that was always our strength. And that's the whole team that we've, all of Ragged Edge is was always built on that sort of sense of integrity. And I think clients can see that and understand it. And I think when you find someone to work with who shares similar values and a similar way of doing things and similar beliefs, you're off to a really good start. I think that's particularly the case with founders and entrepreneurs, where they are looking for people who believe in the vision, who can understand the vision, who can get what they're trying to do and connect on a human level. And that's, their whole way of doing things is based on those kind of relationships. And so for that particular type of client, it was particularly effective.
Amazing. So now kind of moving forward, you've got these two clients and you did great work for them. But again, lots of companies do great work for other companies and they still don't get, I suppose, the whether it's fame or the recognition that they must deserve. So what do you think was special about those two projects that brought all attention to you, and what happened next? Like, how do you feel that transformed your company?
I think through those two projects, we found a voice, and although the two projects were visually and verbally quite different, I suppose, they have some things in common in terms of what it makes to have a successful brand. Bulb in particular is like, as an energy company, they were going up against legacy energy companies that were just old fashioned, and creating a brand that felt really contemporary and modern, that like was able to create that sense of kind of conflict in the category. It was really it was a really simple brand. And for me, like, brands have to be simple, because, like, I don't feel like I'd say this on here, but like, people don't care about brands. Normal people that aren't listening, aren't watching this, normal people don't care about brands. And so we have to work really, really hard to make brands as simple and as easily understood as they possibly can be, particularly when you're in the kind of the space that we are, where we're working with businesses that are doing something different or unfamiliar. And also the other really important thing, I think, for me is, like, they're driven by emotion, and both the Mindful Chef brands and the Bulb ones, compared to the category that they were both in, were really, like, had a really strong emotional beating heart to them. And again, for me, that's in any kind of commercially driven creative work, you have to have that emotion at the heart of it to allow people to connect.
And was there straight away, as you launched those two projects, more requests started coming in from clients, or was it not as dramatic as that?
It definitely wasn't as dramatic as that. And actually, one of the things that we weren't very good at that stage was promoting ourselves. And perhaps this comes from me, and like I talked about being self-critical earlier, we didn't really want to talk about our work until we were really confident that it was as good as it could be. And we wanted to kind of announce ourselves once we were in a place where we felt really, really confident in what we were doing and that we could compete with the best. A lot of that early stuff kind of went a bit under the radar, almost deliberately. And so when we did the Bulb work, we didn't PR it. Same with Mindful Chef. So it's not like today where it like would have shown up on all the blogs and things. So it was much more, people started to engage with Bulb, the company, and then they might look up who did the branding, for example, or the same with Mindful Chef or any of those other kind of early clients that we work with.
I can so relate, and I can see so many people can relate to your point about waiting for the perfect moment when you do have the level of quality that you expect, and then you can present yourself to the world. And it's definitely something that stops a lot of agencies, freelancers, creatives from actually being where they want to be, because that moment never happens.
It was definitely a mistake. Like, we shouldn't have done it that way. And I think, to your point about like a sort of overnight success that took 14 years, we would have built our reputation and the business much faster had we had a bit more confidence. And I promoted, like, just been a bit more ballsy about the way we promoted ourselves.
Brilliant. I now I can see that you're doing a much better job at promoting, because I feel like probably the past year your name was all over the news and design news and publications and internet, which is amazing because you've done incredible work and definitely worth shouting out about that. And you can see the kind of the engagement that you get from people. And I suppose it kind of serves both ways. Like, on one hand, it is promoting your work. On another hand, it's also getting feedback and getting this loop of satisfaction when you work very hard on something and you just kind of put it on the shelf and move on to the next project. You never get this release of endorphins where you're like, okay, that was great, let's do next one.
Yeah, it's quite cathartic. So we put at Rugged Edge now, which is different to what it used to be, we set great store in the case studies. And for us, like, getting the case study out, putting it out into the world, feels like we've finished and we've done the job. Actually, that's very often not true, and we'll continue working with the client beyond that. But it feels like a stake in the ground, and it feels like a chance to, like, share the work. So it feels like quite cathartic for us. It's quite exciting. You never, again, perhaps this is just me, not necessarily the agency, but you never know how people are going to respond to the work. And so there's always a sort of sense of nervousness to that as well. But it's great to see. It's amazing seeing people engage with it, and you get, the branding community in particular, I find incredibly supportive of each other, and the community that you guys have built here, for example. It's not snarky, and it's not of course there are sometimes some negative comments and things, but broadly, like, overwhelmingly, the comments that we get and the rest of our industry gets are really supportive. Everyone wants everyone else to succeed, and I think that's a real like lovely character of this industry in particular.
I totally agree with that. And even from the chat that we have here, there is so much love and support coming your way because everyone admires your work, but also not try to show the support, which I feel like it's so important for any creative industry and creative community to show support for each other because creativity kind of by saying good things to another person, you don't limit your own creativity. It kind of lifts everyone up and benefits everyone if we all support each other. So it's
Yeah.
incredible to hear that you had the same experience. And I suppose on the flip side, like I'm sure there were dark days in this whole history. So do you remember the hardest day throughout running a company where you didn't want to get out of bed? It was bad. Do you remember what was it and maybe what caused it and how did you go about it?
There have definitely been some dark days. I'm a bit of a worrier, and so yeah, when something goes wrong, in my mind, it's a much bigger problem than sometimes it is in real life. But very recently, of course, I think we, had, if not the worst day, then certainly the worst week of any of our careers when, so a year ago, almost like this month, when coronavirus became a thing, and when we had to sort of completely redesign the business from scratch one day. So our situation then, which I'm sure is very common to almost everybody here, so this is certainly not unique, is March was I think we had our best ever, if not best ever March, and best ever, maybe even best ever month. March a year ago, coronavirus happened, and we had to reconfigure the whole business to work online, for working from home, and figure out like what does that mean? Like what does that mean for our process? What does that mean for our team? What does it mean for a culture? For everything. At the same time as that, I think we lost 2/3 of our business within about 48 hours. So Matt and I were taking calls just relentlessly with clients who were just obviously incredibly apologetic. It was not their fault, but pulling work, and this like lovely um, schedule that we had planned out for the next couple of months just fell to pieces. And it felt at that point, it felt existential. Like we felt, this could easily be it because no one, there was no end in sight. So that was really tough. And we had to make some really tough decisions as a business. Obviously, like the first thing we then had to do was cut costs. And our overwhelming priority was to try and keep the team. We, spent 14 years building this incredible team who'd all put their trust in us and worked like so hard and put so much heart and emotion into Ragged Edge, the business, to make it what it was. So our overwhelming ambition was to try and just protect the team and look after them as best we could and keep that in place. So we cut every cost everywhere we could, but that still wasn't going to be enough. So like many businesses, like we were both thankful, but also it was an extremely humbling experience, like having to use the furlough thing. And we asked about half the team to furlough. We asked them also to take pay cuts as well, which was horrible. Because nobody deserved to be furloughed. Like it wasn't like they hadn't been either working hard enough, effectively enough, or anything. They've been doing an incredible job, and to have to stand up or like go on a Zoom and do this all via Zoom and ask these incredibly talented, loyal people to make those sacrifices was awful. It just felt like we'd failed. Just having to ask those questions felt like we'd failed the team and failed the business and all the rest of it. To the team's credit, they, to a person, responded just unbelievably well. And everyone, whether they were furloughed or whether they were the people who were asked to like hold the business together while we were trying to figure out what the hell was going on, they were incredibly supportive and they pulled us through this. And like it is a testament to the strength of the kind of culture that not that Matt and I that created, but that had emerged from Ragged Edge. That I guess we are now where we are now, a year later, and we're kind of still here, still working, albeit still from home, sadly.
Wow. I mean, that is a tough year and tough decisions to make. And especially being in charge of those decisions. And as you said, you're the type of person who overthinks and I can only imagine how hard it is to say that to the group of people who are talented and, as you said, who are loyal and incredibly deserving of everything that they have. Do you remember anything? How did you survive during that? Because it's again, you need to kind of keep yourself together and be at least at least at the 50% level to your team.
Yeah,
Like anything that you did that helped to actually stay somehow I don't know, an example or just a good human to the rest of the team.
yeah. It was really hard. It was hard for everybody. I think we had a really clear goal, and we were fighting for survival, and so that gave real focus to everything we were doing. And it, like, in many ways, it was as motivated as I think any of us have ever been, because it was, the threat was real. We felt so much responsibility, particularly for the people that we were asking to sit at home and do nothing. So that was really, in some ways, that was quite good because it, you focus your mind on something. Um, I, I think you survived the first bit on adrenaline, but it takes its toll. I had one sort of, I shouldn't say this, but I had one moment in particular where I had a like, I was getting, so part of this new experience was being on Zoom the whole time, right? And you're looking at your face the whole time. And I was getting really stressed about, or not stressed, but annoyed, and my hair had got like ridiculous, as it kind of is now. And I tried to administer a self haircut that did not go well. And I had so I had a beard trimmer, and in the mirror, just like, I didn't think about it at all. Can't believe I'm telling this story. And I didn't think about it at all, and I hadn't put the little bit of plastic on it properly or something, and so I thought I was gonna, give it a sensible trim, but in actual fact, like, shaved the side of my head to pretty much to the bone. So my hair was like longer than this, and then just one bit here that had a just a massive bald patch. Oh my gosh. Which is pretty cool.
How did you explain this to the rest of the people?
So I did it on a Sunday night, and then we do a Monday morning meeting, which Matt and I, kind of like the host, I guess, run. And so I had to show up on the Monday morning meeting. Like, yeah, it was a talking point. It was an icebreaker.
I think this experiments we all had during the lockdown, whether it was with hair or with any other things going wrong in the houses. I suppose it's a good practice to deal with unpredictable things and how do you behave in this situation. So I think now you can pull off any sort of awkwardness in front of the client.
I guess. Yeah, let's try and take the positive from it.
Well, and I suppose I wanted to kind of quickly touch on one more thing that you mentioned, which is culture and people. And it has been an incredible thing that you've built. And again, probably there are two different cultures or different, I suppose, flavors of the culture that you have before 2020 and I suppose during 2020. But what would you say is so special about the kind of the people that you have and how they work together, or the culture that you created. Can you describe it in any way?
Yeah. So we've always had, so that kind of level of integrity that I talked about earlier has always been at the heart of what we're doing. People work, and the culture has come about through, I guess, initially through Matt and my values as human beings, but really then it got taken on by the agency, and it has been very much something that has emerged to begin with organically from the whole team. And Luke was one of the people that really drove that to begin with, and we've since built, everybody that came in and joined the team added something new and brought something new to it, but had that same hunger and that restlessness and that, but also that really love of like collaboration and working with other people. So yeah, it emerged, to start with, it emerged quite organically. We then tried to systemize it a little bit, and probably one of the best decisions we've made over the past couple of years is to appoint a head of people and culture. So Lisa oversees all of that, and her job is to make Ragged Edge culture work, basically, and she does an absolutely phenomenal job. And yeah, it just means that as you get bigger, and particularly in this kind of work from home environment where it's harder, I think you have to put some stuff in place to try and make sure to protect the culture that you've created, and kind of reinforce it, and also be open to it changing and other people coming in and adding to it. I think that's one of the things that I've slowly, probably not fast enough, but learned, is that we talk about diversity and things, but like the more different type of people, and being open to kind of adding to the culture rather than just accepting that it's this like static thing, is like what keeps things moving and keeps it as good as what it is now.
Are there any particular things that you, I suppose, do or practice as a team that help this culture to be supported and cultivated?
Yes, there are. I mean, I think we do all the things that lots of agencies are doing, in terms of trying to make sure that we don't just talk about work together, and particularly work from home, and just making sure that there's lots of initiatives going on all the time, making sure that people are looking out for one another, and that one of our kind of I guess principles as an agency is like people first. And just really trying to look out for people and make sure that people are okay, and start from there. And I think that's not just from Matt and I. That comes from the whole agency, and everyone here is very caring and looks out for each other.
That makes sense, and I feel like culture could be another topic of our conversation, going deeper to all the wonderful things that you do as a team, and definitely you invest time to think about culture, which is actually a good place to start to make a deliberate decision to consider what needs to be done, whether it is practices, rituals, approaches, or who needs to be in charge of it, which is again another important thing. So that's fantastic. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, and I wish we had another hour to talk about all these wonderful things, because it seems like it's a lot of fun. And I suppose I wanted to finish with one last question to you, which is kind of, you've been running this company for 14 years, and you learn things as you went, and again, no one taught you how to do things, so you had to figure things out on your way. So if you had to go back to, let's say, 5 years ago, so when your company was 9 years old, and you could give yourself an advice that would save you a lot of energy, stress, time, money, whatever that is, what would that be?
I think it would be about having the confidence and belief in what we're doing. Like lots of people in this industry, I think everybody has this like imposter syndrome, right? And you always think that everyone knows more and everyone is better at whatever they're doing than you are, and you're faking it. So the reality is everyone has that, and having the confidence to talk confidently about the work we're doing, to be not afraid to put it out there. I wish we'd done that earlier, and being able to do that now and actually like confidently say, we want to be one of the best in the world, and really focus on that, and not be ashamed of it, has really helped focus the agency and really drive the quality of the work. We perhaps could have done that earlier and might have got there sooner.
Amazing, wonderful. And I feel like you're definitely on the path of being the best in the world. So I'm excited. And every time I see a new project announced by your team, it's just such a joy to look at. So thanks for inspiring creatives around here, but also being very human. And I didn't know the fun side of you. So I'm very glad we had this conversation. And definitely.
You did very well to get that story out.
Well, it is now out, but thank you for sharing. And so that's, I suppose, proves your point about being human and being real, and kind of why people do trust you as a company or you as a person, because of this special relationship that you can build, which is based on being honest and being transparent and being yourself. So thank you for that. And thanks everyone for joining. I can see so many lovely comments everyone is posting. So thank you for being part of this conversation. And it has been a joy. And if you're not following Ragged Edge yet, please do it right now. Go on their Instagram, and they have fantastic work, and check out their website, because you'll see more brilliant projects. I was just going through it today, and I noticed more and more interesting things that I haven't seen. So definitely check it out. Any last words, Max?
Thank you. And yeah, I like, if this inspires anybody, just that confidence thing, like just believe in what you're doing. Honestly, having that belief is not something I had right from the beginning, and it would have made all the difference. So have that confidence in what you're doing and believe in it, and good things will happen.
That's fantastic. Believe in yourself. That's a good advice for all of us. Thanks everyone for joining, and please do follow Futureline Academy for more interviews. There will be more coming out soon. And thanks everyone for joining, and until next time, bye.
Bye.